Hey everyone, Andy here, and today's plan was to take you for a tour around my Alfa 156 GTA with fresh paint. But the weather cannot make up its mind. It's raining, it's windy, and it's cold. So rather than me stand out in the open and show you around this beautiful sports wagon, we're going to go and take it for a spin around the Derbyshire Dales. Now, if you do like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. That really helps with the algorithm. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get some beauty shots. Let's go for a quick spin in the Alfa 156 GTA. See if we can turn it around. Turning circle in a GTA isn't that good compared to a standard 156 because they use wider suspension and much bigger wheels. The suspension is actually so much wider that they had to actually put wider wings on this. It's actually a physically larger vehicle to a standard 156. Which is a good point, actually. If you were to buy an Alfa 156 GTA and you needed front wings, chances you will need front wings because the front bumper rubs on the wings and takes the paint off, takes the lacquer and paint off, and then they eventually start to corrode. You can't just use standard 156 wings on this because the GTA is wider. And each GTA wing is about 600 quid, believe it or not. Luckily though, the person I bought this car from had sourced some, not new, but better condition wings for this car, which it definitely needed. It was rotting away. They also really needed a paint job, this car. I bought this car from the original owner, so I'm only the second owner from new, and I've had this car for about a year now. It's just about due its MOT again. And the owner had owned this from new and had looked after it in mechanical terms extremely well. The amount of history that came with this car was insane. I'm not joking when I say there's about 2 inches worth of history with this car. And I did add it up and it comes to about £30,000 worth of money being spent on keeping this car on the road. Some of that was servicing, some of that was repairs, some of it was welding, but some of it was also aftermarket mods. So out of the box, this didn't have a Q2 diff on it. The owner has put a Q2 diff on it, and I have to say I'm really happy for that because I'm not sure I'd enjoy 250 horsepower through this lightweight car on these twisty roads without an LSD on it. It also has a Auto Lusso aftermarket carbon air intake on this car too. It has, I'm not entirely sure which exhaust, but it has a really loud exhaust on it, free-flowing exhaust. And it has Blistine coilover shocks all around. And going through the documentation that came with this car, and also speaking to one of the Alfa independent garages that looked after this car has actually had 3 sets of coilover suspension on it to get it to handle how it does now, and it handles really, really well, especially thanks to those Pirelli P0 tires on here. As well as the additional wings that this car desperately needed, I was also lucky enough to get an extra set of Alfa GTA alloy wheels with it, so I did really well. The reason why I managed to get this car and the reason why I got it so cheap was the fact that it was desperate need of paintwork. The bodywork on this car, although straight with just a few dents here and there, and the only rust being those 2 wings because of that common issue with the paint wearing thin on them. The paintwork was dreadful on this car. Now, any of you who have know anything about Italian cars or have owned Italian cars, especially red cars, will know that they do not like the sun. And this car, having lived in the south of England, yes, even England has enough sun, the paintwork had really been destroyed, and I'd never seen anything so bad in my life. When I bought this car, I was actually worried that if it broke down and I had to leave it anywhere, someone would tow it and scrap it. That's just how bad it looked. The paint was all gone, basically. It was all faded. There was no lacquer left. Well, whatever lacquer there was actually literally blowing off the car. You could peel chunks of lacquer off the car. It desperately needed a paint job, which is actually, it has been done now. It's actually been totally resprayed in its original Mirror Rosso color, which is a really beautiful reddy orange color that changes slightly in different lights. Like today it looks more like a dark red color, but on really sunny days it looks more orange. It's a really, really beautiful color, and I'll show you some images of it in a second. The car itself, obviously being a GTA, a top spec car, was also fitted out with some really nice optional extras from the factory. It has self-leveling xenon lights, it has automatic rain sensor for the windscreen wipers, and even heated leather seats. And it's a really nice place to be. I mean, it's not a sports car in any stretch of the imagination, but it's a really quick grand tourer. And once we turn around on this road and we get to a bit of open road, I'll let you listen to that 3.2 litre V6 Busso sing a little bit through that very, very loud and throbbing exhaust. Although it is a 5-seater, it is a 2000s car. And I remember looking at cars back in the 2000s when I was much younger and thinking, wow, look at the size of that, it's huge. But now when you park this next to anything modern, it looks positively tiny. It might have 5 seats in it, but it is quite a compact car. Even parked next to a modern Fiat 500, the Alfa 156 GTA looks a little bit small. So we're just going to turn around in this little area here. We're going to wait for a little bit of clear traffic, and we'll let the engine open up a little bit and sing for you. The 156 GTA with its V6 engine has a 6-speed manual gearbox. You can also get these in a semi-automatic 6-speed version. They're especially popular in Japan, but I wouldn't recommend it. The manual is beautiful. We're just going to let the road clear a little bit in front of us before we open up the engine, and I'll stop talking when I do that. So we're in 3rd gear now. The 156 GTA, the 3.2 litre Busso engine, tends to open up around 4,000 RPM. They're quite lazy lower down on the revs. All right, you ready? Corner up here. The lowered Blistine suspension and P0 tyres really grip around the corners. And again, like the GTV, which you may have seen me drive, I'm really impressed with how the 156 is for visuals. I mean, in terms of actually being able to see around the car, there's a lot of glass. It's a really nice place to be. You can see the road perfectly. It's not like a modern car with massive pillars and a tiny little rear window. It's like being in a greenhouse. You can really see around, which is perfect for when you're attacking roads. Unable to attack them much today because the traffic is just too heavy. There's some really nice features inside the car. Obviously, you've got these really nice leather bucket seats which really hold you in place. They're actually electronic as well in terms of the adjustments on it, which is a really nice touch. Like the GTV, some of the dials actually face towards the driver, so your fuel, your clock and your temperature are actually angled towards the driver. So just a quick glimpse down and you can check that it's not overheating. Apparently the rev counter is angled slightly too, so you can see that the 7,000 RPM rev limit is right at the top of the clock rather than off to one side, which you can see just inside the steering wheel. It is a really cool car, and like, if you've seen me watch my GTV video the other day, you will have heard me say that I prefer to drive the GTV with its 2-litre engine. And there are a few things I do like about that 2-litre engine. It's really revvy, and it likes to be worked, and it's lightweight. But you know what? Now I'm in the GTA, I might have made a mistake. It's no slouch. It still goes really well. I mean, it's just using the torque now. When we've got a bit of a clear road, I'll open it up again. But yeah, I don't know. They're cool. They're both great for different reasons. We're gonna go a different way back because the traffic is just too bad. I don't know how well you can hear the exhaust in this. It's quite booming. It's quite loud. It's especially loud because you have, especially in the mornings, if you need to start this up in the morning to warm it up. I imagine my neighbors aren't too happy about it, so I don't try and do that very often. Luckily, I don't need to use this as my only car, not only because of the sound, but also the fuel cost. 3.2 litre V6 is quite a thirsty thing, especially when you're running on 95. It's so much fun to drive. The brakes are really good too. Some people complain that the brakes aren't quite good enough. I mean, I can get it when you're going really quick and you get them heated up. Yeah, some bigger, larger brakes would be nice to have, but general, normal road riding, they're fantastic, they're fine. I also like the fact that although it's small compared to modern cars, that really helps on these little twisty roads. There's an Audi SUV in front of me now, and it's basically taking up the entire side of our road with barely any room either side. This, I've got tons of room. So good, this car. It's so good. So the big secret about this car is how much I paid for it, and I'm in two minds to let you all know what I paid. Like, a GTA and, you know, decent condition with decent mileage is around 12,500 to 15,000 pounds these days. I mean, that's what people are asking for them. Whether they're getting that much for them is a different matter. And I've seen other cars go for as little as 5,000 or 6,000 pounds, but they tend to need paint, which this needed anyway. I paid 3,000 pounds for this car from the original owner, with all that history and a full MOT. I actually paid him an extra 600 quid so he could take it to his local Alfa specialist, someone who he trusts, to have the cam belts done. At the moment, as it currently stands with the paint, I've spent less than 6,000 pounds on this car, which is bonkers when you consider my wife drives a Kia Soul, which costs considerably more. And the only reason why I think it's called a Kia Soul is because it's soul destroying to drive. It's awful. This is so nice. It's comfortable, it looks amazing, it sounds amazing, it's fun to drive, it's practical. It's really good. Now, it hasn't all been plain sailing. Obviously it needed paint, it needed a lot of work to bodywork and stuff, but there's been other things that I've needed to do. One thing was the alternator. Now, I mentioned in my GTV video that the alternators are a pain to get to. Now, on the 3.2 litre V6 engine, they're even more difficult to get to. And in fact, if you want to replace the alternator, you should really drop the subframe on them. And that's not something I can do on my drive just with axle stands. And the local Alfa specialist wasn't particularly happy about having to take that job on. But I searched online and I was able to just repair the alternator in place just by removing the worn original bushes with new ones. And touch wood, it's been fine ever since. When I had the issues with the alternator, that threw up a load of codes with ABS, and oh, this guy's doing some odd overtaking maneuvers on some cyclists now, which I would not recommend. But yeah, when the alternator issues happened, I had some ABS and airbag issues. But once with the alternator fixed and everything charging up as it should, it's all fine again now. Another thing I had to replace was the small infotainment display. That's a common problem with these. What was interesting was I didn't think it was working at all, and it was only when my daughter was sat in the passenger side and she was reading it, I realized that the angle of the display was wrong. I don't know if it'd been replaced with a aftermarket European model, but yeah, if you were in the passenger side and lower down, you could perfectly read the display. But I managed to order a new display from China for about £60 and repair it really easily. One thing I was worried about with that was a lot of people were saying you had to solder a resistor in place to get it to work. That resistor is microscopic and it's not something I have the skills to do, but fortunately I was able to fit it without and it works fine. Another thing I had to repair on this is the fan. The cabin fan kept cutting out, and basically all that was needed was a, I'm not entirely sure what it was. It was some component which is just underneath the glove box. I can't remember what it was called. I had to order that from Germany, and now the fan works. The air conditioning still doesn't work. I need to get that topped up. But other than that, it's been really good. Oh, the rear electric windows didn't work when I got it. I thought it was a motor issue, but it wasn't. They just stuck solid because it hadn't been used. Yeah, so overall, I'm really happy with my purchase of the GTA. It isn't perfect, but you know what? I think that's why I like it. If this was showroom condition and, you know, it didn't have 115,000 miles on it, if it was a low mileage, pristine model, and you know, it isn't pristine, I'll show you the engine later, the engine looks a bit tired, I think I'd be worried about using it. And that's not what these cars are for. I mean, these cars are for driving. They don't want to be sat around. They don't want to be left in a museum. That 3.2 litre V6 engine wants to get out on the open road. It really dislikes getting stuck behind Audi drivers. Oh, especially when they're overtaking on corners. What a muppet. Right, I think I'm going to end this video in a second. There's not much else I can tell you about this car. But once I get past this corner, I'll let it open up and I'll zip down the road to get some lunch. But if you've got any questions about my Alfa 156 GTA or my GTV, please let me know in the comments below. If you think I've missed anything out about this car, please also let me know. If you enjoy my videos, please give me a thumbs up and also subscribe. That really helps with me planning my content. I can figure out what kind of content that you guys are enjoying. It also helps with the algorithm too. If you give me a thumbs up, if you give me a subscribe, then I know, then the algorithm knows this is a good video, go and watch it. Anyway, this is just me having fun in my Alfa. Seems like a bit of a cheap video, but I enjoyed it. All right guys, thanks very much. See you all soon. Bye-bye.